Hello, and welcome to the Fanfiction Book Club podcast, a weekly podcast that explores the good, the bad, and the cringy of fanfiction. Hosted by me, SG, and my lovely co-host, Poppy.
Hi.
Ollie.
Hello.
And Tstan.
Hello.
Every month, we scour the internet to bring you 4 different fanfic reads, and our theme this month is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Check out our website at fanfictionbookclub.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fanfictionautos for the full lineup of stories for the month and to connect with us on the web. Guys, hello.
Yeah, guys.
It is a new month. There is a new fandom that we are covering.
Oh boy.
And that fandom is Percy Jackson, the Olympians. What is your street cred? Go.
I'll go first. I panic watched both movies on Disney Plus like the night after we chose our.
Oh, after we picked it?
Yeah. And I understood none of it. I mean, I got the basic premise, and then I went onto the archive of our own and recognized no one. I don't know who any of these people are.
You know Percy, though.
Yeah,
Percy.
the one kid.
Percy.
Yeah.
To be fair, I was super into this series when I was, I don't know, was that like 8th grade or 7th grade or something like that?
I thought we were in middle school.
Middle school
or junior
era.
high-ish.
Yeah. And I was going through these stories thinking I'd remember, it would all come back to me. And then they're saying names like Piper and Leo. And I was just like, I don't remember these characters. I feel like I never finished the series. I think I got into maybe the 3rd book.
I think when we were younger, there were only 3 or 4 books. And then we grew out of it. Because I was looking up, there was a guy that kept coming up, Jason Grace. That was
Jason.
I think Jason Grace, I think that's his name. I'm sorry if I messed that up. I remember I liked Annabeth in the series, but
yeah, she was a really strong character.
Yeah, but I think after we grew out of it, there was another offshoot of characters because then there was some big war or something, some god war thing.
Yeah.
And then started bringing Romans into it, and I'm just genuinely I clicked on some stories and I was just like, who are these people?
I don't know anything about Percy Jackson.
So you never read it, but did you watch the movie, Poppy?
I watched the first movie, so I know who Percy, Annabeth, and Grover are. And then I've seen quite a few Percy Jackson cosplayers on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard the names Will and Nico, but I don't know who they are. So I'm like, I know who, mainly Percy and Annabeth. Those are the 2 people that I know.
They're the main ones, and they're the OGs. I think the Nico, Will, Jason crew came later.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering.
And I was just slightly disappointed that in all the stories that I went through, and I think this one as well, there was no mention of Grover, which is
no,
he's the best character.
We were talking about that.
Grover is in this one. Barely.
But he doesn't do anything. He's impersonated by Percy in this specific story that we're going to talk about today.
Right.
Grover
he's not a main character, which I'm like, why? He's so great.
And so for people who don't know, kind of the general gist of the Percy Jackson series, I don't know how it's evolved since the first couple of books that I've read, but it started as this kid, Perseus Jackson, who goes by Percy, is the son of Zeus, but he doesn't know it.
No.
And one day he's he's summoned or something. What? Oh no, Zeus! I keep mixing up Zeus and Poseidon. I don't know why. I should just stop talking.
Poseidon.
So Percy's the son of Poseidon.
We're gonna mess this up the entire time.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to excuse us.
So Percy's the son of Poseidon, and something happens. I don't remember what. But Poseidon claims him as his son, making him a demigod, and that's like half god, half human. And apparently for kids, they have a summer camp that demigods go to learn how to be demigods. So the story we are reading this week to kick off the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series is Come Back Down to My Knees, Be Like Them, Lean Back and Breathe by Soundbender.
I'm sorry. Now after reading it and the title, oh my god.
And it doesn't fit. But
No.
I don't know. It fits a little bit.
It sounds like a translation from like another language. Like
I
what
don't
does
know.
that
I think this
mean?
person's first language was English.
Yeah.
But anyway, this story is rated teen. And it was published in February of 2021, so very recently. The word count is a little over 17,000K and is 5 chapters. And the summary is, when Percy took Grover's place in the Legion, he thought that convincing everyone that he was a dominant would be the biggest challenge. Little did he realize that it would actually come in the form of his cohort's no-nonsense centurion, Jason Grace, or the Mulan AU, literally no one asked for. So this story is a Jason Grace. I have no idea who he is, but he's apparently a dude in the Percyverse. And
that's the lowest bar to clear.
He is indeed a guy.
He is of the canon, I will say. And it's like a not quite romance between him and Percy Jackson. And the notes for this story are Towers of Nero plus Percy Jackson and the Olympians show on the horizon plus more time on my hands due to the pandemic equals my middle school obsession with Percy Jackson and the Olympians rising from the dead like Mushu. Sub outfits were inspired by so-and-so on DeviantArt. Also, I use the terms dom and sub, but it's basically alpha omega dynamics. Title is from Life Itself by Glass Animals. Oh, I know Glass Animals. They're a band. So this story, and the reason that I picked this story is because the author wrote a Mulan AU with 2 male lead characters, but the interesting dynamic is that they're not necessarily homosexual characters because this story brings into light the idea of a secondary gender, which is called ABO dynamics. But it's just the idea that there's like that people on top of just being male or female, they have like an alpha type gender, a beta type gender, or an omega type gender. A lot of that is usually like very adult rated content, but it's become very popular in the fan fiction scene. I think like every fandom I've read has had some sort of at the higher rated level, there are a lot of these types of stories where they bring in that idea of a secondary gender. And this story I found had this secondary gender detail, but they did it in a rated teen way, which I have not seen in the history of fan fiction. And I don't know, what's your guys' level of understanding of ABO dynamics?
I mean, I've seen things similar to this, but it wasn't like explicitly called ABO. God, I don't so specifically in Harry Potter,
There it is.
in the Marauders era, there is a character, Remus Lupin, who's a werewolf, and so he kind of like a lot of fics like kind of like write him as more of like a dominant, like his like wolf side kind of takes over and like that, but it's not like a sexual thing. It's just like a like he's the like unsuspecting leader of the pack type thing.
Alpha.
You know? So it's like that type of thing, but I've never read like a explicitly like ABO like fan fiction. You know?
You've successfully avoided that world?
I guess so. I didn't
Lucky you.
I've never like gone searching for it, so
You don't have to search for it, Poppy. It'll find
finds
you.
It just happens. It'll find.
I've discovered that.
I only have exposure to it because I do read manga, and that's like a really big thing in the manga world, is having this alpha, beta, omega. I've actually never read any fan fiction with it, but
really,
definitely in the manga, it's a big thing, and I try to avoid it because it can be
very unhealthy.
Rating.
It's very mature rated, and it kind of promotes very unhealthy stereotypes in relationships, I would say.
For sure.
Well, let me preface this sentence by saying when I read the summary of this fic, I started crying inside. I have been exposed to ABO of my own volition, far too young, and far too much. I have never this small exception for this. SG is right. It's teen. It's done okay. There's very rarely an instance where any of that is healthy at all.
No.
It's always like losing control buried under like, oh, I couldn't control myself. And it's a lot of what I would call excuses, or a way to write those kind of stories with like, oh, it's not actually toxic because they can't control it.
Yeah. Because it's just their chemical makeup.
Yeah.
And I
No, I just want to say, if anyone decides to look this up or try and find something, be very cautious of the tags.
Yeah.
Watch what you're looking for. And back off if you're not vibing with it. It's okay to just leave.
Yeah,
like okay.
You don't have to look into this further if you don't want to. This is, and I'm assuming there might be others. This is a story that is on the very light side of that tag, but I know it is such a big thing. Even a fandom like Criminal Minds, where I wouldn't even think that people who are into ABO would like cross over, has crossed over there. Like,
where do you think it started?
I don't know where ABO started. I am so curious.
Genuinely, like 90% of fandom was created by the housewives who would watch Star Trek. And would you like to guess when ABO started?
The 60s?
The 60s.
Yep.
What?
It came from a Star Trek episode.
What?
Of course it did.
ABO's from a Star Trek episode?
Yes.
Oh, snap. Wow.
Yes.
Wow, so
and then
the
it
60s
got,
Housewives started it all.
It was reinvigorated in the 2010, so early 2010.
That makes sense.
But yes, it started in the 60s.
Wow.
And yes, you were right, Kirk and Spock.
Oh, man.
There was so much sexual tension between those two. Like,
and
I was
that is
waiting
in
for
my
them to
internet
make out
forever.
on the bridge. But anyway, I guess we can get into the story.
I mean, I guess.
Okay. So, if you all forgot, this is Come Back Down to My Knees, Be Like Them, Lean Back and Breathe by Soundbender. The story starts out in chapter 1, and this is pretty much, so this fic like really follows the plot of Mulan, and they don't really deviate from it. So the story starts out with there's like a night watchman on whatever the Rome equivalent of the Wall of China is. And they see there's like an eagle whipping around. They're like, oh my goodness, this is the sign of Kronos. And then everyone's like, oh no, Kronos is back. And Kronos is a Titan. I think he's just like a thug in this. And he has barbarians with him. And then the Kronos and his crew take out these people on the Rome equivalent of the Wall of China. And and then Kronos is like, I'm going to take over Rome. And then it cuts from that scene, which is like the opening scene of Mulan, the Disney film, to a scene where you have Percy Jackson, and he is getting ready for a like matchmaker counseling session, like Mulan was in the beginning of Mulan. And so where this differed, well, it's not really different because Mulan for a woman had very dominant traits that made her to certain individuals not very attractive. She was very sure of herself. She had things she wanted to do, and she was very independent and tomboyish. And Percy is not a woman in this, but he is an Omega, and an Omega kind of is expected to have those same traditional female roles of like taking care of the kids and the family and just staying home, cooking and cleaning, not really going out in the world, just like maintaining a home. In this story, they don't call Omegas Omegas. They call them subs. And which is insane because there's nothing sexual. Well, there's slightly at the end, but there's nothing really sexual about this story. They're just saying sub is in short for a submissive personality. And then, of course, if there's subs, there's doms, and they have a dominant personality. And I am not sure why the author chose these two words to illustrate that, because alpha and omega kind of feel softer. Like, they don't feel as demeaning.
It's definitely one of those things where if you don't know about the ABO culture, it doesn't make you immediately think of sex. While dominant and submissive immediately.
Yeah, like those words specifically make you think of it sexually, but but this isn't sexual. So Percy is, I'm just going to say like Omega and Alpha because I can't deal with the dom sub thing. Even though this is what the author says, it's just weird.
Too much.
It's a little too sexual. So so he is an Omega in this, but he's not a good Omega because he is also like Mulan, very independent, knows what he wants. He's a little awkward. He's tomboyish. He's not a dainty little thing, and he doesn't necessarily want to be married off. And so he's kind of like getting ready for this matchmaker testing. And then Grover is his good friend, and he's trying to give Percy like a pep talk, like, you're gonna be fine, just like go to this lady, she'll match you with some people. And he's like, fine, okay. And then Percy goes to this matchmaker lady, totally bombs his consultation, just like Mulan did. Like, I think literally when I was reading it, word for word, they wrote everything that happened in that scene in Mulan.
Yeah. They did not stray
They did not stray at all.
Yep.
He's leaving the consultation, and then there is a proclamation. Someone from the kingdom or someone from the empire comes and says, everyone, Kronos and his barbarians are terrorizing Rome. All the dominants in every town, all of the alphas in every town are going to be drafted to fight this evil invasion. And so Percy's friend Grover is an alpha type person. And so he is drafted, but Grover has a bad leg. He had an old injury. And Percy, being really good friends with Grover, is really scared of what would happen to him. So that night, since we all know the plot of Mulan, he takes the proclamation that was given to Grover, and he takes his sword, and he takes his horse, and he rides off to Camp Jupiter in the place of his friend, and he impersonates Grover. And along the way, he meets this character Will, which is apparently another very popular Percyverse character that I also know nothing about, so I can't give you any info on him, who is also an alpha, and he's also a medic. And being a medic, he conveniently carries on him scent blockers and suppressants, and those are supposed to be drugs that mask the fact that he is an Omega, and make his scent appear to be that of an alpha, his scent and his pheromones. And so they get to the camp, just like Mulan did. Percy starts a fight trying to act all alpha-ish. It doesn't work out in his favor. And he gets reprimanded by the head of the camp, who is Centurion Jason Grace. Jason Grace is another popular character I know nothing about. But Jason Grace is like what's that guy's name? Shane? What was the guy's name in Mulan?
Shang.
Shang.
Yeah.
His name was Shang.
Shane, the ancient Chinese name.
I know. I was like, I know it was something, but I knew it wasn't Shane. But I knew it was something along those lines. I haven't seen this movie for like probably 8 years at least. But this Centurion Jason Grace is like the Shang character in the story, and so Centurion Grace and Percy kind of get off on the wrong foot because of this instance, and then the whole "We Are Men" interlude occurs, where like that song in Mulan where they're like doing all the fighting and stuff and practicing.
Oh my gosh!
And then somehow they magically get better by the end. And this Centurion Jason Grace character is impressed by his drive and willpower. And one day Percy is sneaking out of Will's tent, getting suppressants. Will's the character that is a medic that helps him. And he runs into Centurion Grace, and he alludes to the idea that Percy and Will are a thing, and that he shouldn't let relationships distract him. Percy gets really mad at him for that, and he's like, I'm gonna show him. So he does the thing where they have the two weights on the ropes, and you've got to like climb the pole and get the arrow. So he spends all night doing that, and he eventually gets it, like in Mulan. He wakes up in the morning, and then everybody wakes up in the morning, and they're like, oh my gosh, he did it. He's actually good. And then that Centurion Jason Grace guy apologizes, and while he's apologizing to him, he slightly smells, he slightly smells that Percy has like a weird thing going on with his scent. And
so creepy.
Which is so creepy. Which is so weird that in this story there's no like wolf or creature association, yet they have these amazing senses of smell for whatever reason. But they only use them in relation to pheromones. They don't use that sense of smell for any other purpose, it seems like.
Yeah.
Like you think you'd smell your enemies and stuff, you know?
That's what happens. That's what happens when you have a trope created solely for explicit fiction.
I know.
It only has one purpose.
It only has one purpose. I think it could be so much cooler than that, but unfortunately people have like limited it down to one purpose. But so then we move on to chapter 3, and in chapter 3 they finish their training and they're venturing towards the capital empire, whatever. Kronos and his barbarian guys apparently came through and killed everybody. And Percy and everybody are like looking for survivors, and they don't find any. And so they keep going on. As they're going along, like arrows and stuff are being aimed at them. At one point they get ambushed, and it is Kronos was still in the area. So then like a battle goes on, and Percy does the thing that Mulan does, where I think in Mulan's case she saw an avalanche. In Percy's case he saw a dam, and he aimed a cannon at the dam, and then it started a flood, and it washed all of Kronos' guys away. But in the process, the Kronos leader like swiped Percy in the side, and then Percy fell into the water, and Jason went after him. Percy, because he got cut in his side, had to go to the medical tent, and he was like in and out of consciousness for a couple days. And because of the pain, if he wanted to take painkillers, he had to go off of his scent blockers. And then so everyone in the camp knew that he was an Omega, which blew Jason's mind. Jason comes into the tent and he tells him, you did all of this stuff wrong, but we're going to dismiss these charges against you for impersonating an alpha, and you're just going to be dismissed from service, and you need to go back home. And then as Percy's heading back, he apparently sees Kronos up on a hillside with some barbarians while he's on his horse. And then Percy's like, oh snap, they're not actually dead. So he takes his horse back to the Empire. He tries to talk to somebody in power to warn them, and no one's listening to him. And then he eventually finds Jason at like a parade, a celebration that they're having. Jason wants nothing to do with him. So then he goes to the other members of his troop and they help him. And then like the cliche Mulan story, they're trying to figure out how to get into the palace to save the emperor. And they dress up like Omegas and they like try to get in as like party escorts, and it works. And then they get to and then they run into Kronos, they fight him. Percy has like a final showdown with Kronos and pushes him off of a roof. And then everything's fine. And so Percy goes home and he doesn't talk to Jason ever again. And no, that's a lie. He talks to Jason again. He goes home and a couple, like, is it weeks or months later? I don't remember.
Weeks, I think.
It's
Not that
weeks.
long.
Okay. So then a couple weeks later, Jason goes back to, well, he doesn't go back. Jason travels to Percy's town and he presents him with these gifts from the Emperor, and he tells him that he really likes him. And then Percy's like, you don't have to like me just because I'm an Omega. And he's like, well, I don't like you just because you're an Omega. I like you because you're you. And then Percy's like, well, I like you because you're you. Because Jason was thinking he might not like him because he wasn't like a traditional alpha that wanted someone submissive and wanted to protect somebody. He wanted someone who was an equal. So they confess their feelings for each other, and then the story just kind of ends there. And I'm assuming they live happily ever after, but they're at least both on the same page. And that's the story. There's other things that happen, but that's pretty much the story. That is Come Back Down to My Knees, Be Like Them, Lean Back and Breathe by Soundbender.
Just the retelling of Mulan.
Just pretty much, I just literally retold the plot of Mulan.
You did.
So,
this is going to sound mean. It's really easy to write fic if you're just stealing somebody else's.
I know, right? It's really
a Disney
easy
movie.
to write fic if you literally steal everything from a Disney movie. The only thing that's different about this is the characters.
And even that is still someone else's.
Yeah, and even that's someone else's. It's interesting because I see this in fanfic where an author will, like, I'll see, Pride and Prejudice, the literal plot of Pride and Prejudice is just, like, slapped on with some characters' names from another fandom. Like, there's been Naruto Pride and Prejudice. I'm sure there's Star Wars Pride and Prejudice somewhere out there. Like, that's a really popular one that I see copied is Pride and Prejudice. I don't see Mulan as much. And the Cinderella thing is copied a lot in fanfics.
I'm like 90% certain there's a published Star Wars Pride and Prejudice fic.
It's almost like, because Poppy had her Hunger Games fic, but I think in hers at least, they did a good job building up their backstories independently, so you didn't feel as much like it was a copy-paste. There was like some elements to it that were different and like encompassed the fandom. Like in this, they weren't even demigods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was literally just Mulan, but with doms and subs, and everyone's gay. This is another fanfic.
Everyone's gay.
Gay, which is great. We keep like picking all these fan fictions. Like, it happened with Cinderella. It happened with Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
Did it happen with Star Wars? I don't think it did.
I don't think we did with Star Wars.
Yeah, and it didn't happen with Super Mario, I don't think either. But more than half of our picks that we've chosen, like one of the fan fictions, everyone's gay.
Everyone's gay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because they're gay in like different ways because of the secondary gender thing. But I don't think in the story they had any like AA or OO romances.
Do you think the author should have gone over like the Omega Alpha universe at all? Or do you think they just like people already mostly know about this world, so they didn't need to explain?
Yeah, I think it would have been a good service for the author to explain what their version of ABO is, because it seems like, I don't know, everyone could be a little bit different in how they interpret it.
It would have been nice to see a little bit more world building rather than
because they just make you accept that rule and assume that you should know it. But I mean, fanfiction makes a lot of assumptions about its readers. A lot of them think if you're going to a certain story, you're going for maybe that specific criteria. I don't know.
Did they? I don't think they introduced like betas at all in this story.
No, they did not.
Very just sub and dom, and there was nothing in between. Apparently,
there was nothing in between, which is weird.
Switches deserve rights.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that there was no in between, or at least that alphas and omegas had more of a spectrum to their behavior if there wasn't like a beta character.
And everyone I've read of like the alpha omega world, like omegas are very rare and alphas are also kind of rare. There's just more betas in the world.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It made it seem like there's majority of alpha or omegas.
Well, it sounded like there were a bunch of alphas and some omegas. Because they said like their reasoning for keeping them at home was because they weren't as common.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So is it like stormtroopers versus real characters in Star Wars? There's just like one is infinite.
The whole, this one sex is very rare, so we cannot have them be injured or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so prevalent, and it's just...
Yeah.
Hey.
I was really confused. I sent a message in the Discord earlier that was like, hi, I need someone to explain what this whole sub-dom thing is happening. Because I thought that it was a thing in Percy Jackson. I just thought... thought that it was just like this weird thing that I just didn't... It wasn't in the movie, so I was like, I don't know. And like, nope, it's just... It's exactly what you think it is. It's the sub-dom thing. And I'm like, oh my god, now I have more questions. I'm like, why did that? Okay.
It's a thing. It's a thing that people are into, and it's just like gained a lot of popularity.
Yeah, it's just like the fact that like you're just thrown into it, and it's like, yep, these people are subs and these people are doms, and it's like there's like no explanation, and that's why it made me think that it was a thing in Percy Jackson, because it's like people reading this know what this is. Like, come here you go, and it's like, oh.
So what did you think reading it then before you realized that? Like, did you think it was a sexual thing, or? Well,
I was like, it can't be a sexual thing if it was in Percy Jackson. Like, so I'm like, it must. I don't know what it. I didn't know what it was. That's why I was like, someone please help. And Ollie was like, nope, it's a sexual thing. It's not in Percy Jackson. I was like, oh, okay. And after that, I got it. But yeah, at first I was very confused.
And to be fair, like I've read a few of like these Alpha Beta Omega stories, and they always seem to like preface in the very beginning what it all means.
Usually.
And yeah, just like a brief synopsis of like this is just establishing how this world is. And they kind of just threw you in like, Mulan, no explanation needed there. But with these different genders, I guess. There was nothing leading up to it.
But the interesting thing is because I haven't read any of this recently, so I don't know if it's gotten crazier. And I'm wondering if that resurgence after when I was reading, and I don't know how recently you've been reading it, Ollie, people just started assuming that everyone knew the ins and outs of that system. So that's why this person just has a note. It's Alpha Omega dynamics, but I'm just saying Dom and Sub. Like they're assuming that everyone knows what ABO is. So it might be that where it's just like gotten so popular, people just assume. And it's a little bit of lazy writing to, even if you are talking about something that's quote unquote common in the fan fiction sphere, you should really do your due diligence of explaining what your version of that is. Because there are like small differences that any writer can bring into any trope.
Yeah. And I don't want to like bash the author or anything because it was well written, but lazy writing, like when they followed the entire Mulan story line, they didn't really establish these genders, and I feel like it was a little bit of a lazy writing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's sad because like I really wanted to find a story that I'd like, but instead I had to settle for a story where I just felt like we could have a conversation.
Yeah, I felt like I had to settle for my story too. I wasn't
very interested in any of the stories that were like coming up in this fandom, and I've never had such a hard time finding something.
You know what? I also agree, and I found most of the stories were all AUs and nothing. I mean, there's a few that, was like in the book with the Greek gods, and they were all like demigods, but most of them were all AUs.
Yeah. Yeah, they were AUs.
Oh my gosh, just very...
Like, what?
I was agreeing, yeah. They were very, like 90% of what I was seeing.
And what does that say about the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series? Like, we don't like these characters in this setting. We want to see them somewhere else.
I think it's because it's too world building. There's so much like story and like so many characters. And
do you think it's just like intimidating for them?
I think so.
I mean, I've heard great things about the series, like the book series.
I think the book series is very fun for young readers. I think there's a lot of adventure and things that happen, and character development too. That happens. Like, I think it's good for the age group that it's written for,
and like dipping your toe in mythology, and that's what I liked, the Greek gods when I was reading the stories. But apparently I never finished the series. I thought I did, but
I think we finished what was out there, Ollie, when we were
and they were still making books.
I think that's the thing. It's like the Harry Potter syndrome, but we didn't stay young enough to stick with it.
Yeah.
Were there any other just like general thoughts?
I feel like this could have been so good. I feel like this author could have made, if with a little bit of world building, could have made ABO their own. Not so much like without any of the connotations, but they could have put it into their own world without just saying, this is ABO, but I'm calling it something different. And immediately having people who know what that is. I mean, there were a lot of assumptions as soon as I read that in the summary. I was like, oh no.
And the thing is if you have been exposed to that very toxic version of ABO, your mind immediately goes to the worst case scenario. Like, I try to approach every story neutrally until the author explains to me something in a way that I think, ooh, I'm not okay with this, I'm out. I give them a chance to explain things to me. Unless their writing's horrible, then I'm just out initially. But this, I wanted this story to be like, you know how there's story about women who are oppressed and put into this position that they have to overcome. I think it'd be very interesting seeing this gender bent version where Percy is a male, but because of his secondary gender is perceived as that that trope of a woman who should be this one thing, an individual who should be this one thing, overcoming that. Mm-hmm. And I was really hoping that that would have been like a bigger part of the story, and how a man who identifies with a more feminine or supposedly traditional feminine role because of his secondary gender deals with that. I think that would have been a very interesting and empowering character study. But the fact that they literally just followed the plot of Mulan didn't allow me to see how a man going through the same situation, because he's still a man. It's just a man who happens to be able to have kids. I don't know how all that works, but apparently he's able to have kids.
We're not touching that.
No, we're not touching that.
Bring it up because in the dating like area, I guess the matchmaker.
Yeah.
She goes, improper use of a toga as always, and too tall and lanky, not good for bearing children. And I was like, he's a man. Like he's a like as far
Ollie,
as
a man with a uterus.
he's assigned male at birth, and he's cisgendered man. How is this happening? Like, what are you talking about? And they didn't explain that any further. I'm like, of course he's not good for bearing children. He's a boy.
Whatever the simplest explanation that your mind can give you, if you think about it, that is the answer.
The thing is I just don't think about it. You're gonna hurt yourself thinking about it, Poppy.
Yeah. Just don't.
Is that our general thoughts, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to characters.
It was Mulan. It was Mulan, but with dudes.
Yeah. Gay Mulan.
Yeah, there you go.
Was Will actually supposed to be like the the cricket or whatever that?
No,
I don't know. I don't even know who Will is.
Will was the guy that was an alpha that was also a medic and magically just carried around walkers.
Like in comparison to Mulan, was he supposed to be?
No, I think he was just the supportive friend.
Okay.
Well, because in Mulan, Mushu is the one that's like trying to help Mulan and keep her secret and stuff. So Will was Mushu in that sense, yes.
Yeah, but he wasn't supposed to like fill in that personality.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, no. Will had like no. I mean, he was nice. He was a nice guy.
Yeah.
Here's a plot hole. Why does the all alpha army need scent blockers?
That's what I'm saying. Why does Will carry around suppressants and scent blockers everywhere he goes? Is he trying to pretend to be an Omega?
Well,
no, it's just another ABO trope.
I know.
But it was still like, why? Why is it in this story?
Maybe that's how they keep themselves from getting smelled by the other army.
But then they need because suppressants are usually an Omega thing.
Oh.
If I remember.
I didn't even realize that was an actual thing.
Yeah.
No, it's a part of it.
It's not like again, we were talking about scenting being useless for anything but
but smelling other people's pheromones, which is insane to me.
Remember anime conventions, you guys? Do you remember going outside?
I went to Sakura-Con once.
I never went to an anime.
Once.
I miss going outside. Even if that means neck beards.
Neck beards? You don't like neck beards?
No.
I think they're cute. They're like little puppy scruff. It's like petting a dog.
No, dear. Neckbeard's the person.
Who's Neckbeard?
Not the facial hair.
Wait, what?
Who's Neckbeards? What?
Is it a fedora milady?
Yep. The anime man who doesn't shower. Yeah, that one.
They call those guys neckbeards?
Yes.
I did not get that.
I was thinking about a hipster, because hipsters have neckbeards.
No.
I was thinking about like a scruffy little hipster.
Not my intention. But
See,
yes, I will
Ollie,
come
it's
see you.
amazing what a different world we live in.
Yes.
Tstan.
I always feel so enlightened when I talk to you guys. I always learn something
I
new.
know, it's like the clash of cultures.
And on the other hand, I like go and hang out or talk to my work friends, and I'm just like, what?
Totally different world.
So many different worlds. It's amazing how different everyone's experience is. Like, even just within the fanfic realm. I feel like,
Oh my
Tstan, I have
God.
a much more optimistic sense of
You
fanfic than you do.
You do, and it's adorable. I love it.
I just
It's
try to
actually
see the
great.
best in it.
It's a
try
really
to.
good part of your personality. It's
But
really
it's,
naive, but it's cute.
I mean, I know it's out there. I just hope that somebody has something better. So if there is a Mulan ABO
Oh god.
Percyverse thing
Mulan
that is much better than this, let me know. Because I think it's an interesting concept. And I
It's
wish
such
that
a
someone from like a scientific perspective would like analyze and write a story that's a little more that makes a little more sense.
That's such a niche like request.
I know it is. I have very niche fanfic requests. Occasionally I've found stories that meet them, but it's not very often.
Oh my gosh.
Like health insurance in the Empire. But
Yes.
so that's characters. Not much going on there. And then we'll move on to writing.
It was Mulan. I
It
can
was
answer that.
Mulan.
It's the story of Mulan. They watched the Disney movie and just copied it down.
Yeah.
Do you think they watched the Disney movie, or do you think they were just such big Mulan fans that they just knew all of it?
I mean,
feel like they were a fan.
yeah, but they might have had like maybe some clips on YouTube or something.
Maybe.
I'm just imagining this author like doing her research and like having all these tabs open of Percy Jackson characters and YouTube videos of Mulan, just typing away.
Oh my god, I always feel so mean, but like,
No, don't feel mean. I mean, we're giving our honest reviews of this stuff. Like this is a story that I brought to the group knowing it's not a great pick, but I think it's
But
interesting.
it wasn't a bad pick.
It wasn't bad.
no.
Like, in terms of the writing, it definitely wasn't bad. There were like 2 misspelled words that I could count. It wasn't enough for a whole hand, so
Yeah.
I finished it. But I think there were just like a couple spelling mistakes. But for the most part, like I could follow it. I wasn't like, my head wasn't spinning trying to understand what was going on. Like it was a very linear story.
Yeah.
We
Because-
have seen worse.
We have seen much worse.
Yes.
It follows the plot of Mulan. I mean, an author even just being able to successfully follow the plot of a movie is almost like a skill when you read fanfic. Because of how many that are out there that just like seem like, I don't even know what's going on. Is this English? Am I reading
That's fair.
English right now?
That's fair.
So
it
kudos
was
to them for
legible.
that. It was legible and I could follow it. So how well did they stick to the fandom, guys?
Ah.
I mean,
They had
got
their
the
names.
Yeah.
It would have been really. I was really wanting. I wanted the Emperor to be Zeus, and like I was just really wanting them all to still be demigods. I think that would have been much cooler to have them be demigods in the Mulan universe.
That would have been kind of cool.
I think so
yeah.
too. I think that
I
would have
mean,
been a lot cooler.
It would have been super easy to shift with the whole dam situation.
Yeah.
You already
Percy
got it in
controls
there.
Water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
why did they change it to
Poseidon's
a
son.
dam? Why did they change it to a dam and a waterfall instead of snow if Percy doesn't have control of water?
Well, because they're in ancient Rome, and I don't know that they get very much snow.
I forgot they were in Rome.
Yeah, but
Genuinely did too.
it was kind of sad because that's why I said the equivalent of the Great Wall of China in Rome. Because they didn't use any real setting indicators that made you really feel like they were in, they weren't in ancient Greece, they were in Rome, right?
They said Rome, yeah. And yeah, I was when you said that, I was like, I don't know, the Colosseum. They're like on top of the Colosseum. That's the only thing I could think.
But you'd
How
think
would
that
they
they
get
would
there?
give a nod to that.
Yeah.
Or in the plot to like really, because there were points where I was reading the story, I'm like, oh, this is literally Mulan. And I'm like, oh wait, it's in Rome. But why is nothing in terms of the geography or anything other than a dam? Like things that they mention. Like even the Empire, you'd think they'd describe what that looks like. Because that entire fight scene, I just kept imagining the Mulan plot.
Yeah.
Like all of that architecture, all of that Chinese architecture and everything. And I'm like, I mean, I know it's in Rome, but I don't know what this is supposed to look like in this author's head. I think I know we're not talking about writing anymore, but I think they could have made more of an effort with descriptions of things.
Yeah.
Because yes, I was also always thinking Mulan. Like honestly, the Percy Jackson wasn't even I was like, this is just
This is Mulan.
Mulan.
This
Yeah,
is
I'm like,
literally Mulan.
You can't just say you're in Rome and then not
Describe it.
Rome.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, we're on this wall in Rome, and they climb on top of the Great Wall of China, Rome.
I know.
Great Wall of Rome.
Okay, let's read some comments, folks.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of caps lock.
Softest sugar. Okay, so wow. First and foremost, I am definitely not a Jersey shipper. It is cute, but it's not my thing. However, this fic had me hooked from the get-go, and I absolutely adore the way you wrote this world, characterized each individual, and had the story progress, so massive kudos to you. This really is great, and although I came for the Solangelo side tag, I stayed for the beautiful Jersey French relationship. What's Solangelo? Is that Angelo and Solano?
I don't know who those people are.
I don't know. I think those are characters in this. And then the author wrote back, thank you so much for the wonderful comment and for giving it a chance, even though Jersey isn't your thing. I'm glad you enjoyed it. : close parentheses.
Did they read the same fic we did?
I don't know.
It wrote this world. It's Mulan.
It's Mulan. I know, it's literally maybe this person doesn't know what Mulan is. Maybe somehow the Mulan has escaped their development.
Potentially.
Oh.
That's interesting.
And then Derpy_Graxon said, I would be lying if I said I don't want more. I actually need more. This was amazing. And then Soundbender responded, nice pun. I don't get it. Amazing.
Shang. Mulan.
That doesn't work. His name was spelled with an S.
Is that what they were going for?
I don't know.
Shang? Yeah, I guess so.
Nice pun. No more for this one, unfortunately, but I've been putting in a big PJO AU kick recently, so there will hopefully be other similar-ish stories in the future. And they said, well, I'm willing to read more, but still sad. : apostrophe, close parentheses.
It's a sad smile.
Sad smile. Okay, I'm just gonna read this last comment because I feel like it's a lot. Bookwormish52 said,
Oh boy.
I loved the way Percy rejected the stereotypes and expectations of subs. Even though Percy is a guy, this fic felt almost feminist. I guess because Mulan is too. Percy was great in this.
And if this was a better written story, that would be like, that's what I wanted to get out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that one in all caps locks from chapter 1 that I'm not reading.
Where's that one?
Yeah, hold on. Here I come.
Alright, Poppy, go for it.
I clicked on someone else's profile. Hold on. Whoops. I accidentally
Technical difficulties. Oh no.
I accidentally clicked on one of the kudos. Whoa. Are you talking about Shu?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm talking about Shu.
This was amazing. I love it so much. Oh my god, this fic filled my whole heart. I never knew I had. Thank you so much for writing this. I'm yearning for more.
Yearning
So
for more.
the crazy thing for me is that this fic filled a hole in my heart, but they spelled hole W-H-O-L-E.
I thought they meant like this fic filled my whole heart that I never knew I had. Like they didn't know they had a heart.
So, what would you guys give this story in terms of a rating?
How many lightning bolts?
Ooh, that
Or
was
how many tridents?
Tridents is good. Oh
Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will give it a 1.5.
Oof.
Yeah.
For the I give it 1 point because I think the plot could be interesting, and the 0.5 because the writing didn't offend me, but there was no real originality to this story, and I think the characters were very bland, and I wish that for a Mulan story with a male Omega, there was more empowerment than just following the plot of Mulan.
Yeah.
So 1 trident and a little handle. A little half handle.
I give this a 2 tridents because like I thought it was cute at points, but it was also kind of cringy. And yeah, it was a copy paste of Mulan and then like Control F Mulan's name and Control R Percy, like and like I was confused by the Dom sub thing for a minute there, and yeah, like I think it was fine, but it just needed a little sprucing up,
Yeah.
Well, I would agree. I would give this also a 2 tridents. I thought they retold the Mulan story very well. And I can appreciate what they were trying to do with putting Percy as a sub and him like define the stereotype of what a sub should be. So I appreciate that, and I thought, yes, it could use, some originality, but I think it was told pretty seamlessly, and I, for the most part, enjoyed reading it, though it was just it could use more world building.
I'm gonna have to give this a 1.
Oof.
And it's a difficult one to give.
Did you want to give it a 0? No tridents?
Well,
that's an option.
Look, this was hard for me to read. This was just very difficult. I was kept expecting it to be like, okay, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. They haven't done any weird stuff that I was expecting from ABO, so it's gonna get better. And then it just petered out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I do feel bad because I'm sure they worked really hard on it, and I don't like to upset people, but yeah, no. It's a 1. There could have been so much more done to it that it feels disappointing where they left it.
Thank you for listening to the Fanfiction Book Club. Our pick this week was Come Back Down to My Knees, Be Like Them, Lean Back and Breathe by Soundbender. You can find this story and more of the author's works on archiveofourown.org. Theme song is Funkorama by Kevin MacLeod. You can find more of Kevin's music on incompetech.filmmusic.io/artist/Kevin-MacLeod. The works discussed on the Fanfiction Book Club are not our own. All characters mentioned belong to their original authors. Until next week, bye!
Bye!
Bye.